Like we used to make like 300, 400 cold calls a day.
Ton of cold calls.
Yeah, that's a lot of cold calls. We used to, and that too, the cold calls and the meetings that we set up, we had to take the demos as well. So
Oh,
it was like a
wow.
hybrid role, and we used to work like 14, 15 hours a day.
I was just about to say, like, it sounds like you're
Yeah.
working like 16 hours a day.
Yeah, legit. It was just like sleep, work, sleep, work. And that's the thing, right? Like if you want to break into a space that you don't have any traction on, this is the work that you need to put in.
Landing a great job opportunity is sometimes very challenging. Breaking into tech and getting hired as a sales rep can be even harder. When I was applying to my first sales jobs, I also struggled with the unknown. What to expect, what the tech industry was like, and how do I break in? After years of being an SDR myself, I've decided to build something I wish I had in the beginning. My name is Stefan, and in the SDR Hire podcast, I interview successful SDRs and salespeople who share their stories straight from the trenches. Learn how they got their first job offers, how they succeed every day in their roles, and what makes them stand out in their organizations. We all have what it takes. We just need someone to remind us of the opportunity and give us a better chance for success. Let's get your next SDR gig.
Hey, welcome back to the SDR Hire podcast. I'm your host, Stefan, and this is a place where you can learn from top producing sales development representatives what it's like working in tech sales, how do you break in, what do companies look for, and how to succeed as an SDR, all for free. And today, I have the pleasure of talking to Dave Denny, a proud resident of the 30 under 30 SDRs in India list. So after graduating in 2020, Dave had been dominating the world of sales. So we're talking anything from high-ticket B2C sales to a full cycle B2B. And as of recently, Dave has joined a company called B2Brain as their enterprise business developer. I'm super excited to learn about his current as well as past experiences. So let's just get started. Dave, pleasure to have you on.
Hey, Stefan, thank you so much for having me. And I noticed that you used the word dominating, and I wouldn't say that. That's kind of like overselling it. But yeah, thank you. I appreciate you bringing me on your podcast, and I'm really looking forward to helping some SDRs out there.
Sure. That's awesome. I'm looking forward to it as well, and just diving into your previous experience. And now I may have a bit oversold it, but let's be honest, like we're salespeople. We like to
Yeah.
be enthusiastic about the things we're selling, and I'm proud to be selling your previous experience today. So just let me have it.
Yeah, of course, Stefan. So when I start off in sales, like as everyone, like you're always looking for the better opportunities out there, and you always want to get into a company that will always scale up your SDR process from day one, right? And you'll have the right team, you'll have the right coaching. So for me, it always starts like whenever I go into a role, for me, how it works is I always look for people who are living my ideal life in the next 1 year. So if I'm an SDR and I see somebody, a rockstar SDR, making this much amount of money, hitting this much target, being great on LinkedIn, I'll always go to them and ask them, hey, how did you do it? What was your journey like? And what was your process like? So usually this way of finding people in the industry who you look up to, who you can find that are living your ideal life is the best way to start off. And that's kind of how I started off in B2B SaaS as well. Like I look for mentors. I found a mentorship. I joined the company. I learned about sales before actually getting onto the field, how to
Nice.
write those cold emails, get those cold calls in, how to make connections on LinkedIn, how to speak to people in a more non-pushy way of selling, and how
Right.
to detach from the outcome of the getting to the quarter targets, getting to the yearly targets, and just, yeah, that's how I would put it across.
I love it. And you mentioned a few nuggets there, meaning detaching from the outcome and, just knowing how to write cold emails even before joining. I think those are very good practices. And I think I think sales leaders and sales influencers on LinkedIn often talk about these specific things and like skills to develop as an SDR before or during the role. I especially love the detaching from the outcome from John Brown. Again, he keeps kind of coming up on these episodes. By the way, I'm very, very curious. Like you more or less recently graduated. It's been a couple of years, right? And
Yeah.
you just dived into sales. Like, how did you know you wanted to, like, did you know you wanted to work in sales? Like, how did that look like?
So I don't think anyone actually knows that they're going to get into sales, right? Usually in college, you might have like placements that your college gives you where you're just like, hey, I didn't get any other job. I'm going to get into sales. Because again, sales is a place where if you do really well, it's where you get most paid. Like it's a skill that not many people have and not many people have the grit for. So for me, it never started that way. As a graduate from mechanical engineering, I was in my second year itself. I knew like, hey, this is not for me. I want to get into something that involves more dealing with people, understanding people, and like the psychological side of things. And I always wanted to work towards the freedom that everyone chases. Like the fire, like hey, retire by 30, have the freedom to work for yourself and everything. And those are like great dreams to have, right? So I always thought that hey, owning a business of my own, creating business of my own would be the first way to start. So, and like I mentioned in the last one, since I wanted to start off a business, for me, the first goal was to find a mentor who did it himself. So again, like going through LinkedIn, going through Instagram, going through Facebook, I used to ping people, like I used to message them saying that, hey, I'm looking forward to learning from you. I see that you have built like multi-million dollar businesses in the US, and learning this from you would be beneficial to me as well, right? So there was one mentorship that really liked it, and he made me join his cohort. So he is somebody who built like multiple multi-billion million dollar businesses in the US, and he was coaching students to do the same. So it was like a cohort that he would personally coach us, and it was obviously paid. And like that time, I had zero money, and I still put everything I have, like in my savings account, into that. And he taught me about like sales, marketing, copywriting, how to set up a business, what you need to do in terms of growth, how you can grow this particular channel, and everything in terms of that, right? So this was all good, but the thing is, I did this during peak COVID time. Like this was 2020, like second wave was hitting, and like setting up businesses was really hard at that time. Like it was super tough. So that's when I came into like, so I decided like, hey, okay, I have to take up a job. I need to save up some money, become a bit more financially free, and then maybe I can think about, maybe my head would be straight to think about entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
So that's when I loved the sales side of things, because the way that he was interacting with people, the psychological warfare that you have with people when you're selling to them, making them understand how to emotionally sell them and understand like what a person gets. Hey, okay, this is what I'm going to buy. This is why I should buy it. So that part felt really interesting to me. So like B2B SaaS again, like no, I've seen very few people crack into B2B SaaS in the first try itself. So for me, I started off in the education tech space. So here we were actually selling this course. It's so you know how the education system is now, right? We're still stuck onto the chalk and the blackboard or the marker and the
That's
whiteboard,
right.
and we're still teaching the old school way of things. So I really like what this platform was doing. It's a really big platform called Byju's, and that's where I started off my sales career. I really loved the product that they were selling, and it was really passionate. Like I really loved selling the product, and I learned a lot. Like we used to make like 300 400 cold calls a day, and we
Well,
used
that's a
to,
ton of cold calls.
yeah, that's a lot of cold calls. We used to and that too, the cold calls and the meetings that we set up, we had to take the demos as well. So
Oh,
it was like a
wow.
hybrid role, and we used to work like 14 15 hours a day.
I was just about to say, like, it sounds like you were
Yeah.
working like 16 hours a day.
Yeah, legit. It was just like sleep, work, sleep, work. But the thing is,
All
it
right.
was, and that's the thing, right? Like if you want to break into a space that you don't have any traction on, this is the work that you need to put in. Like you need to genuinely go out there and work for what you get, what you want.
Yeah.
So, and I knew that like being in a job versus being in an entrepreneur, obviously job is much better, right? Like because
Yeah.
that's more safer, and it actually gives you something monetizable. As an entrepreneur, you have to wait like 2 3 years, maybe even like 10, to see growth in your income, even in your stability in where you are.
Hey there. I wanted to let you in on a couple of additional resources available other than the podcast and the social media content. So I recently started a newsletter where I break down the best pieces of advice from the podcast about getting hired, how to be a top performing sales rep, into actionable nuggets that you can apply literally as soon as you read them. And in addition, if you're currently looking for an SDR role, you can fill out a form to let me know, and I'll do my best to help put you in front of tech companies hiring for SDRs. All right, back to the show.
So yeah, so I didn't mind working like those 15, 16 hours. The only problem was I'm a person who was born and brought up in the Middle East. I did not know how to speak my local language. And in India, some of the companies require you to sell in your local language.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a struggle for me. And even though like I was hitting targets over there, I couldn't keep up with this because to build that rapport with people, you need that skill of speaking your local language.
So
Yeah.
are you saying, so I'm sorry for my
No, go
lack
ahead.
of knowledge. So different types of what I would call it, like languages or dialects are spoken in different parts of India. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. So like you're from Serbia, right? You might
Yeah.
have a Serbian mother tongue that you speak versus English and versus like some other languages that you might be proficient, right? So in
Right.
India, every state has their own language. So in the state that I'm from, Malayalam is the language that's spoken there. Maybe in a different state, it's Hindi. Maybe in different state, it's like Telugu. So in different states, it's different ways of speaking. There's a
Gotcha.
different language. So that was a struggle for me, and that's why I kind of moved away from that company. And yeah, that's when I started researching into B2B SaaS, and which would be the next industry that would be popping in the space itself, right? And that's how I found B2B SaaS, and that's how I started.
Very nice. Very nice. So let me just, is it Outplay? Was that the first company? No, it was Midgear, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And then you went into Outplay, and finally you ended up in B2 Brain. So what I'm curious about here is the interview processes. How do they look like? Were they similar in these companies? I'm assuming all of these are B2B companies like SaaS products.
Yeah. So in the companies, some of the companies have a pretty standard interview process where you'll have the first round with an HR. They'll understand, hey, why are you looking out for a job? How's it like in the market? And it's just really basic questions. And the next round will be with the SDR manager or the VP of sales, depending on the size of the organization.
Mhm.
So here, the VP of sales will understand like what your experience is like, why you switched from a job there to job here, why you looking for a switch, what made you switch, and depends on like how VP of sales questions their employees, what kind of questions they have in their roster. I've even asked like, hey, if you're leaving the last company, what would be the 3 strategic changes that you would make in the last company and which made you stay there? So it's like really innovative question that I've heard from some people as well. And the next round would be obviously like the assignment round, where they would ask you to maybe make a email cadence or maybe do a cold call on like online, something like that. It depends upon like company to company again, right? Like, so basically I've usually seen it's an email cadence of the 4 steps, like how would you write from introductory email to the breakup email. And then once that part is done, you'll maybe have another round with the next layer of interviewer, which would be most probably the VP of sales after the manager. In rare cases, I've seen an interview with the AE as well. If you're a little more experienced, you want to see that working, like how it would be like to work with the AE. Would you be compatible? And then again, final round with the HR, salary discussion, and that's how it closes up usually.
Very cool. Very cool. I'm curious about, so you wanted to break into basically B2B SaaS, right? So what did you do? Did you have a specific strategy on how to approach these companies, or were you just applying, like blanket applying? Like what did that look like? And I'm very curious about B2 Brain as well. Like, did they hunt you, or did you go there?
So when I was breaking into SaaS, like I mentioned, right, I went through the mentorship route. So this company Midgear, they were actually a sales training organization where you get trained for around 2 to 3 months on B2B SaaS sales. And then you can choose to either work for a different company or you can choose to work for them, like because we're a fairly new team. So that's where I started off in my B2B journey. Like I had the connect with the founder. I spoke to him about like breaking into SaaS, and I really want to get into the space. And that's when he told me, "Hey, I have this cohort that's starting, and then you can join it. We'll teach you about B2B SaaS sales, and then you can get a job right after." So that's how I
Nice.
broke into sales. Um, in B2 Brain, so since Outplay gave me that ground with the 30 under 30 and with like social selling, I got some traction on LinkedIn. So that's the beauty of LinkedIn. And I'm putting this out there right now. Whoever posts on LinkedIn right now on um, like every day or like once a week, they're definitely getting in job offers like inbound. Like you don't have to go out of your way to actually apply for jobs. Now, if
Very
there's a
simple.
company that you really want to target, like, okay, this company hasn't come to me, I want to go out and like prospect them, like, hey, how would I do that? So I have a plan for that as well. Like now I wanted to crack this company in the US because I really love the US SaaS culture, and like that's where I want to go. So I made a plan for them, like going to their website, analyzing what it looks like, what would be their trigger points to make, hey, this is what you are trying to solve, this is where you can add value. And then so this is something I would take caution on. Like if you can, before you leave your next job, try to use your data tools and get the numbers of the people you're trying to get hired by.
Mhm.
So if you're going for a company A, if you can see a VP of sales, SDR manager, or somebody on LinkedIn who's influential, who can act as a champion for your hire, actually take up their numbers and start a cadence on a free platform that gives you free credits. So you can directly cold call them. You can reach out to them on LinkedIn. Lavender, that gives you free, like it's free for job seekers, and you can literally make great emails you can send to them. So again, there are different ways of getting the job. For me, B2Brain, like it was I knew that they were hiring. I know the team personally. Like I've met most of the people like when I network over here. And I found the team to be really great. The founder's a really good person, and the team that they had over there, I've like spoken to them. We always had this compatible thing, like, hey, like we would do great like with each other. So that's how it went. And then we had the assignment as well, of course. Like it's not a freebie that you just get in. So the assignment was done, and then yeah, that's how I was hired at B2Brain.
Very good. Sounds very cool. Speaking of the company, what is the actual product that you are selling, and what is the target audience? So is it like enterprise or mid market? What does that look like?
Yeah. So for me, how I choose products is it's really interesting. I prefer choosing products that I personally find pain in.
Uh-huh.
So even with Outplay, like, hey, when I was in my previous company before that, I never had a sales engagement platform, and I had to like send
Whoa.
out I had to send out emails manually from an Excel sheet, taking the email one by one on Gmail. So it was like really hectic task.
Yes.
So when I saw that, hey, there's something like this, I would be like jump on that and like, hey, this would be great to sell. So at Outplay, the issue was that, personalization at scale, right? It's so tough right now for people, and sending out 30 personalized emails might be easy for some, but tough for others.
Mm-hmm.
And I always looked out for a tool that would automate this process. Like it would give you talking points on what your account is thinking about, especially enterprises. Like if you're somebody who sells to enterprises, you wanna crack into a bigger account like Adobe, or you want to crack into a bigger account like SAP. So you need talking points and insights to be relevant to them. So what B2B Brain does is we actually have a free trial for this. We have an SDR, we have them on a free trial. We ask them to like put in 5 accounts that they're trying to crack right now.
Mm-hmm.
And we we use the algorithm to get talking points from these companies that would be relevant to their email, or if for an AE for going on their calls and having that uh, demo discussion.
Mm-hmm.
So we give those talking points to the SDRs and AEs.
That is super interesting. Can you give me an example of talking points? For example, that would be, I'm assuming, like recent funding, like getting acquired, like Figma got acquired by by Adobe. So I'm assuming that might be one of the trigger, right? So you're basically finding triggers and specific points about an account that you can then use to personalize the outreach.
Yeah, so it's sort of like that. So the thing is, those are intels for you, right? Now you can
Mhm.
say that, hey, congratulations on getting acquired. That's one word. Now, how do you make it into a talking point? So what we do is we take your company domain, we take the domain of the company that you're targeting and make it a talking point. So how would them getting funding be beneficial to your company? Like how would their funding be beneficial to you? So that would be a talking point for the company itself.
Nice. I gotta check this out.
Yeah, because every SDR can write like their first line on the email would be like, "Hey, congratulations on getting acquired." But for your company, what does that acquisition mean? Like, hey, you raise Series B funding. Looks like you're gonna ramp up your sales team a lot, like by 100%. Like, so how are you enabling them to do this?
Yeah.
Are you looking to invest in tools like this? So again, those are talking points that we give, right? So that's more important than being more relevant than just being like, hey, congratulations, this is my pitch, bye. So yeah, that's
right.
what we kind of do with B2Brain.
Very cool. Very cool. So what is it like being an SDR? Can you walk us through your regular day to day? I mean, I saw you're very active on LinkedIn. You're very skilled with cold calls as well. I see that you know how to write emails as well. So like how is it structured, like your day and your activities as their SDR?
So usually my day is structured around like, okay, so just before getting into work, I have to get into the zone because again, like since in India we work the night shift, we have to sell to the US. So by the time the morning is done and the evening is there, like we're all just lazy and clumsy. It's just like, hey, how do we have the motivation to work? So for me, like music, if I listen to music, like it just hypes me up. So literally 1 hour before like I get into my selling or whatever I do, I blast music out my earphones and I'm just like, hey, into that zone, like, hey, okay, I have to start working right now. I have to start my day. And that's how I start up. So the first thing I usually do is since I'm in a new company right now, I'm just 1 month into the role. I would recommend every SDR to do this as well. If you have a software like Gong, or if you have Wingman or something that records your previous prospect calls, make sure you have like half an hour or 1 hour per day to listen to those. So this is where you'll understand why a prospect bought your software, why a prospect decided to say no to you. And according to this, you can build your pain points guide and your objection handling guide. So this is one thing I would definitely recommend to do, especially when you're new into a company. And the second thing I would definitely do is keep half an hour out of the day to listen to maybe a podcast or attend a webinar. So this is how in my initial roles, like I used to, even when I came into B2B SaaS, I was still working like 12, 13 hours a day. For the company, I was working 9 hours, 10 hours, but the rest 2 hours, 3 hours, I was actually working on upskilling myself. So in my first 6 months of the career, like I did not miss a single JB Sales webinar. I didn't miss a single Jason Bay webinar.
Same here, man.
Exactly, right? And they have so much to say, and like just listening to them or even following them on LinkedIn would upskill the way you sell. So this is highly recommended, especially if you're early into your career and you want to advance like really quickly. Like if you want to really advance like super fast, otherwise you'll be stuck in the same role for a long time. It'll be tough for you, right? So make sure you're upskilling yourself every day in this terms. So it'll be beneficial. Yeah. So that's where I would put some of my time.
Very
And
nice.
then the basics like the account research, emails, phone calls. That's basics that every SDR knows, right? Like there's nothing special about that. Like that's what we have to do. That's our daily task.
Hey everyone, I started SDR Hire in the first place to help as many of you as I can to land your next job, become better at sales, and just help you propel your career. So if you're finding value in this content and you know somebody who will benefit from it, please share it with them, tag them in a post, send them via text, share it wherever you share stuff with your community. As always, all of this is completely free and is here to help everyone succeed. So your recommendation goes a long way. Appreciate you, and let's get back to the show.
Yeah, gotcha. I mean, it's not like it's nothing. Like you still have to do the actual work. Like, you make it sound it's easy, but some people who are coming into the role and who are maybe, more shy and they still need to develop that grit that you mentioned and that determination as an SDR, they might sometimes find those activities intimidating or, you know, and like, have you ever felt that way? Although from what you've been telling me, I doubt it, but like, you've probably worked with some people who have experienced that kind of, let's say, resentment maybe, or just hesitation towards the role.
Yeah, so I mean, again, it's sales, right? Like who hasn't faced that in their life? And especially like for me, like in my first role, since I was selling to parents and it was like a direct to consumer thing, whenever I used to cold call them, I used to get like threats on like we will send this number to the police and like we'll put you in jail kind of things.
Yeah.
So like coming back from that to coming back to cold calling is really tough, right? And it's something that everyone faces. Like even in my first few roles, like getting on a cold call, making a cold call was really a task, and it still is. Like I still don't make cold calls in front of other people because I don't like it. Like I don't like the persona that I become in front of them. So I prefer to do it like on the side alone. But yeah, it's like a tough thing to do. Like it's really, I understand like some people might be shy. It might be, it's like, it's tough to build that skin and get that rejection from sales. And especially when you're making like 60 to 80 calls a day, you might get like uh, six, maybe 3 or 4 connects on which like everybody will be like not interested, or you might hit gatekeepers. So it's obviously tough, right? And yeah, that is definitely something that every SDR has to face. But what I have to say is like once you're past that point, like once you have that skin and you look back, you'll be like, hey, okay, I did something like amazing, and it's great.
Yeah.
So advice to the SDRs, try to get past that point. Try to have things in your day-to-day life that help you release that tension that you have. And yeah, hopefully yours will kill it.
Amazing. I totally agree. I was just thinking about one thing that you said, and it reminded me about like upskilling yourself, but doing it in real time. And what I mean by this is sales development is changing so rapidly that, things that were working even a year ago might not be working today. And so following people who are doing it in real time and just trying new things and showing new things that are working today opposed to something that was working before is extremely
Yeah.
useful and extremely powerful for your career. And that's kind of what happened to me as well. I was constantly like literally 3 4 hours after work, like
Yeah.
6 to 10 p.m. I would just, for example, sit down and listen to podcasts, listen to webinars, and like you mentioned, JB Sales. I was listening to Josh Brown. I was listening to, all those folks, or reading their, like you said, reading their LinkedIn stuff and like courses and stuff like that. So a pretty important topic. I just wanted to kind of emphasize what's like a
Yep.
huge thing there. But I'm curious. What do you think? Like, what would you say that one thing that is making you successful today? And I can't say you're successful. Okay, maybe not dominating as I introduced you, but like, we can certainly say you're being successful. What is it?
Yeah. Uh, so one thing that I noticed, like again, this is a journey that you'll have when you have that self-awareness and have that maturity as an SDR. And one thing that I always felt that makes me kind of stand out a bit is the way that empathy and EQ were cultivated in me, like from my childhood and in college. So for me, I was always curious about learning about people, learning about psychology, how people react to certain things, what makes them tick, what makes them, hey, okay, be like, hey, okay, yeah, I don't mind talking to you. And this is something that I've always tried to figure out since my childhood days, since the college days, and it's very fascinating to me. So and this is exactly why I love cold calling and meeting people face to face. It's because when I'm on a cold call and they say something to me, from their tonality, the way they say things, I can understand what they mean. In that sense, what they mean, like emotionally, like is this actually not a priority for them? Or are they just doing a brush off? Or are they genuinely busy right now? So these kind of things actually help you in understanding, hey, should I push more or should I retreat and like give them their space?
Yeah.
And
How long
this,
how long did it take you to get to that state of understanding and like reading the room, because I know in my case I used to, like, at least in the beginning, like panic, and I was more in my head than I was really listening to them.
Yeah.
And so like it takes time to actually hear the tonality and hear what's going on a call.
So again, it depends on how fast you want to learn this thing, right? If you're truly passionate about something, you will go out of your way to find things to look for. Like I don't have to learn about this only from my prospects that I'm cold calling. I can learn it from my friends. I can learn it from my parents. I can learn it from any person I meet. So it's all about just staying back and listening to what a person says and understanding how their tone and how their action contradicts or like um combines with itself. So it's tough to learn. I won't lie. It took me a long time to learn this, and it's not easy. But and that's why like professions like sales are not meant for everybody, right? It's so lucrative because everyone doesn't have the patience to learn something like this, to get that empathy, to get that EQ right in them. It's a long process. Like you'll at least take maybe like 3-4 years to learn it, like truly learn it. Like I don't like you'll know, but truly learn it, it'll take around like maybe 3-4 years. So yeah, I feel this is something that um I genuinely like knew that, hey, this is an important skill that I need to learn if I need to be successful in sales and business, especially when you're meeting people face to face. And that's where the real game starts, because now it's not just about the tonality. Now you have to read their body language, the way their face expressions change, the way their stance is, and that's all like, if you have that EQ and that emotional understanding of a person, you will understand, hey, okay, this is what a person wants from me, this is what they're thinking right now, and that's really helpful in sales.
That's a great answer. What would you say is that, like, if you can recall, the most creative way you've ever booked a demo or a call?
So again, right, so creativity in terms of, so for me, creativity comes from, again, reading people the right way, right? So if I see that someone has been in the financial industry before they changed into sales, so how can I use this information to be creative about myself? Like there was this lady, like I was emailing her, and I was just having fun with it. I'd already hit my quota for the month, and I was just like, hey, let me just have fun with emails. So what I would do is I would actually look through her profile, and I see that she was working in a place that I was born and brought up in, but then she moved to the US. So I was like, hey, I know. So we get like amazing shawarma over there in the Middle East. And I'm like, hey, I know you're missing this. And that's exactly how I connected. So I would be like, hey, I know you're missing good shawarma. And just like how, and I recreated two MQLs and SQLs. So she really loved that. And it became really responsive and actually turned into a meeting. So again, it's all about understanding what a person, putting yourself in a person's shoes, right? And that's the most creative thing that you can do as a person, as a salesperson. Like if you can put yourself in their shoes and understand where and what they're missing, that's the best way, best creative way. Like I've seen people like send coffees and write raps, and that's amazing. Again, those are different ways, right? But for me, I feel like this is the most creative way that I've booked a meeting.
I love it. Especially because, we constantly talk about relevance and talk about, being personalized and all of that. But this is actually an example of truly, using the information that are at your disposal,
Yeah.
to cater the message specifically to this person. I love it. I love it. This was a great example. Um, but is there a thing that you hate uh, as an SDR?
So this stands for like, even as an SDR, as a salesperson and an entrepreneur as well, right? And I understand this about startups and why they kind of tend to push people a bit more is the uncertainty of your next move. So as an SDR, you never know like when your outreach is gonna pour its fruit, right? You never know when your good email is gonna hit. You don't know when your good phone call is gonna come through. You don't know when your next meeting is gonna close. And it's the same with startups. Like you don't know when your next deal is going to come in. You don't know when your funding is going to come in, and it's really stressful, right? And that I feel is the most stressful thing. And I mean, I wouldn't say it's just stressful, right? To know that, hey, this is uncertain, because I've seen people who hit no quota for like a whole month, and people just tell them, hey, you're a bad SDR, and the next month they're just at 200%. So it's all about uncertainty, because that timing is it's never right? You never know when you can approach that person. Like the timing can never be right. So I feel that would be the best example for that.
I love it. Yeah. So where do you see your career progressing? Like what are your next steps?
Yeah. So for me, so whenever I started my sales career, I always loved helping my peers, especially learn from my mistakes and like learn how they can hit their quota as well on the team.
Mhm.
And for me, that's always been a passion project since my first sales role, like helping people. So I always thought that SDR manager would be my next role. But at Outplay, when I saw the AEs, I saw them taking discovery calls, that negotiation bit of psychology and how they conduct themselves. It honestly intrigued me a bit at least explore the AE role once, so that I can see, hey, what this is about. So again, like right now, I think I would move into an AE role, test it out a bit, and then maybe come back to SDR manager or maybe an AE manager. So that would be my next career progression.
I love it. It's interesting because a lot of people see the SDR manager role as kind of a lot of people I've seen and heard, like they see it as let's call it a lesser role in comparison to the AE. Like literally, I disagree with that a lot because it's completely different. It's a managerial role. It's like you give up a bit of that, money and prestige and all of that, uh, but you gain like the ability to help others succeed and
Yeah.
make others better. So I see it as just different rather than uh, like lesser. I don't know.
Yeah.
I love your attitude. I feel the same way.
Yeah. So I mean, SDR manager versus AE has always been a topic of discussion, right? And the thing is, again, it's each one to his own. And for me, since this is what I like doing, like I do love helping people, upskilling themselves and helping them become the best version of themselves.
Yeah.
And again, that's why I would love to go into that role.
Cool. What is a message that you would, collectively send to anyone trying to become an SDR?
Yeah. So number one message would be to get the mentorship. Even if you're like 1 month 2 months into your career, just make sure that at least if you're in your early stages of your career, make sure you get into this mentorship which teaches you like how to navigate through sales, getting those basics right, the cold emails, the cold calls, the LinkedIn, social selling. If you're more like, if you're in 1 year into your career or 2 years into your career, you can still upskill yourself. There are places where there are advanced coaches, like JB Sales has its premium coaching, Justin Michael has his premium coaching. So there are places that you can upskill yourself there as well. So that is one thing that I would definitely recommend any SDR to do, like upskill themselves every time, every chance they get. Another thing I would definitely recommend is, whenever you look for a company, make sure that you have peers who are better than you. So this is something that I always look for in a company. Like I always try to join companies where the SDRs are better than me. So even if you're somebody who's a lazy potato and you can't actually go and watch the podcasts or have time for the webinars, when you have interactions with your peers and they're better than you will always have something to learn from them.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like this is really important, like scaling up as an SDR faster, because people who have been on the field will always teach you better than any podcast or any like recorded training, right?
That's right.
So this is something I would definitely highly recommend that someone does. And third thing would be, even if your posts don't make sense, just start posting on LinkedIn. The amount of traction that I've gotten in the past year just by posting once a week is just, it's just truly insane.
Mm.
So it's easy to post. Like it's not as tough as people think, because you can just do this. All you need to do is the one thing that you upskill about yourself that day, just teach that to the public. That's all posting is about.
Yeah.
And that's all you need to do. So if you're learning one thing new every day, Just make a post about it and post it out. And automatically your writing and your posting style will become better. So yeah, that's what I would recommend.
Very comprehensive. Thank you for that. What would be a message that you would send to your future self in like 3 or 5 years?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Mm.
So I would, so I feel like as we get older, like some people, I've seen some people become a bit more lazier and a bit
Mm.
more, and I've seen this in myself as well, right? Like after a while, like roles become stagnant. So even though there are ways to upskill yourself, some people choose not to, and that hinders their progress. So
Mhm.
I feel like if 4 or 5 years later, if someone hears this, I feel like I should tell myself, hey, have you actually upskilled yourself to the next role? Are you upskilling yourself right now? What more can you do for the role? So this is something I would definitely recommend, that, keep upskilling yourself, keep learning, be more curious about the space, be more curious about the ways you can sell. And yeah, you'll be on top every time.
I love it. I love it. Make sure you come back to this recording in like 3 years and remind yourself of what you just said.
Yeah, I hope so.
Cool. What is something that you would tell to our next guest without knowing who they are?
Oh, okay. That's a good one. I mean, I guess give it your best. Give them, like, make sure that you keep on providing value, because a lot of people are seeing this, right? And learning from you. And I've seen the guests that you have. I saw Kevin Hollingworth's episode, and like he's great AE. And if you have people like that, it's always beneficial to watch web podcasts like this and to learn from them, upskilling yourself. Again, it comes back to the upskilling road.
Yeah,
Then it's always better to give back to the people what you learned, so that they don't have to go through what you went through to learn. So yeah, that would be
I
my
love
message
it.
to the next guest.
I love it. Perfect. We're going into the rapid questions, and then we can start wrapping up. So, real quick, what is the best SDR learning resource in your mind?
JB Sales webinars, hands down. Like if you want something that's money, and you're really early into your career and you don't have enough money to invest in sales coaching, it's best, like any webinar. It's not just JB Sales. But I found most value from JB Sales, and I love James Buckley. So again, yeah, I would recommend that.
Awesome. Great crew. Okay, what do you think is the best SDR skill?
So like I mentioned, if you can get empathy and EQ right, understand your prospects more and where their objections and their industry and what their requirements are coming from, I think that would be the best SEO skill that you can have right now.
Perfect. Maybe you've already answered this in another way, but best SDR creator or creators to follow.
Oh, this is a tough one, because now the trend on LinkedIn is just post, right? And there are so many creators coming up right now. But
Yeah.
I'm gonna stick to the OGs, who are like Jason Bay, JB Sales, um, the 30 Minutes to President's Club podcast, Nick, Armand, they're amazing.
Mhm.
And recent creators as well, like Landon Myers, like they're just popping up and they're giving
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
much value back. So many, like there's so many people, like I can't, like the Jared Robin and Tom Slocum, there are so many of them, so it's tough to like just point at one. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Awesome. No, 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 this was gold. Okay. Okay. So, what is your go-to SDR channel?
Phones. I have to book meetings for the phones. For me, emails and LinkedIn are too slow. So I'm very
Yeah.
impatient that way. So I just give them a dial and like get it over with, right? Hey, if you wanna go
Okay.
for it, like yeah, so
Speaking of
no
which, what is your go-to cold call opener?
problem. So for me personally, since I have a more quirkier tone, and I believe in this, right? You need to have openers based on your tone.
Mhm.
My favorite opener is like, hey, you're probably gonna hate me for this one, but this is a cold call. So do you mind if I take 30 seconds before your next meeting, or would you like to hang up?
Nice.
So this is the opener that I would usually use. Yeah.
Very cool. Okay. What is your go-to call to action?
On emails, so I usually don't go very fancy with that. It's usually like worth an explore, interested, something like that, really short, like hopefully like 2-3 words and not more than that. Yeah.
Okay, so but interest-based call to actions.
Yeah, mostly, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, last one. What is your favorite tech sales acronym?
EOD.
Very cool. Very cool. Can you explain what it is?
It's the end of the day, so you sign off, go to bed. That's perfect.
Well, hopefully, but it seems like in your case, you just go and crank out like 3 hours of podcast and webinars.
That's for the public. Like I don't actually do that.
Alrighty. Okay. Hey, this was awesome. I really enjoyed your company and your expertise, and I think our audience is gonna really love your perspective. So this was great. I appreciate you very much, Dave.
Hey, thank you so much, Stefan, and thank you so much for taking time out of your day to do this. Honestly, this is my first podcast, and I was really nervous, but since you're such a great communicator, it was done really smoothly. So loved it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, man. And you kind of sound like you work in sales, like you have that very, very smooth way of talking to people. No, this was really great. I enjoyed our time here, and I can't wait to see what's next for you. And I'll keep following you on LinkedIn as well. So I appreciate it, man.
Awesome, and ditto. Like I'm looking forward to your next guest. Looking forward to your next podcast and learning from them.
Thank you for tuning in to the SDR Hire podcast, the only podcast exclusively focused on SDRs, where successful salespeople share about their hiring stories and sales adventures straight from the trenches. If you found this useful, go ahead and share it with someone else you know is trying to break into tech or land their next SDR gig. You can find SDR Hire on all major podcast platforms as well as YouTube. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and catch you in the next episode.